The last time we had a weekend like this where there weren't a ton of ranked versus ranked or marquee matchups on the schedule, a lot of folks around the country were calling for upsets. It didn't happen. Will it happen this week? And will it happen in the Big Ten Conference? I've got my Week 6 picks as we go all around this big nation.
From Pasadena to Piscataway, College Park to the Coliseum, Seattle to State College, Columbus to Camp Randall, the Zoo to the Rock, and everywhere in between. This is where Big Ten fans gather to talk America's premier national conference with your host, Big Ten Ted. All Big Ten, all year long. This is Big Nation.
I think people are hoping. I think people are waiting. I think people are yearning for that college football chaos that we know and love. And this is one of those weekends where there's maybe not a ton of ranked marquee matchups where that could possibly happen. You look at the Big Ten schedule, there's a couple that maybe stick out where you got ranked teams going on the road to some hungry football teams right now. So it could happen, but there's only one way to find out. Let's get into my picks for week number 6. It all starts on a Friday night. It all goes down tonight on Fox College Football. Friday night when the Michigan State Spartans travel across the country to take on the Oregon Ducks. Look, this one might be competitive if Michigan State could just hold on to the football. But here's the thing. They can't hold on to the football. They have been a turnover machine and not in a good way so far this season. So Aiden Childs needs to protect the football for Michigan State to be able to hang around maybe against Oregon on the road. But here's the thing. Oregon has a really, really good offense. I think Oregon is going to score the same amount of points in this game that Ohio State did last week against Michigan State as well. And that one was in Spartan Stadium. This one is in Autzen Stadium. Ducks getting some home cooking in this one. But even though Michigan State is improved on the defensive side of the football, I think Oregon puts their foot on the gas early and then maybe coast late. It allows for a Michigan State cover. Final score in this one, I've got Oregon 38 and Michigan State 17. So Michigan State covers that plus 23.5. And this one hits the over 51.5. I think the Ducks are going to score a good amount of points in this game. Let's go to the Saturday games, and let's start in that early window. UCLA going on the road to Happy Valley to take on the Penn State Nittany Lions. When you look at a matchup among the lines, UCLA's offensive line against Penn State's defensive line, I think Penn State is going to eat them up for a late breakfast. They're going to eat them up maybe for a little bit of a later lunch as this one maybe gets into the third quarter and into the fourth quarter. I think Penn State can dominate up front against UCLA. I think it's going to be tough for UCLA, for Ethan Garbers to get time to maybe get it to some weapons and win some of these battles down the field against the Penn State secondary. If Garbers can get time, maybe this could be a little bit of a different story, but plain and simple, I don't think he's going to get a lot of time. This is a big spread. This is a Penn State 4-touchdown favorite right now at home in Happy Valley in that noon game. I've got Penn State 35, UCLA 13. I've actually got the Bruins covering in this game, maybe a backdoor cover type of situation here for UCLA. But I think Penn State, that 46.5 over, I think there's a chance that they could hit a lot of those points themselves in this particular game. Penn State dominates. All right, Wisconsin and Purdue, the Badgers have beaten the Boilermakers, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 17 consecutive times, and Purdue's got nothing to lose. Badger fans might be feeling a little bit shaky right now when you put all that into consideration. No Ches Malusi for the Badgers, so I think you're going to get a heavy dose of Tawi Walker in this game. Of course, Cade Yakimelli has been in that running back room. Maybe some of these freshmen. Maybe Darian Dupree. We've seen him a little bit so far this season in that running back room. But Luke Fickell says that he wants more of a number one and then maybe a backup type of role. He doesn't want maybe as deep of a rotation at the running back position. I think you're going to focus in on number 3 in red, getting a bulk of the carries. I have a feeling that Wisconsin this is going to be a get-right game type of game for them. Now, I said that last week against in the Nebraska-Purdue game, and look what happened to the Cornhuskers in that specific football game. If you're a Badger fan, this is an early game. You fear Purdue's maybe going to come out with nothing to lose. They're going to come out with their hair on fire. But When I look at this game, I think Wisconsin can move the football. I think Wisconsin can play pretty good defense up front. We'll see if they can get pressure on Hudson Card, because that's really the key to really getting Purdue's offense out of sync. I think Wisconsin wins this one 30-16 over the Boilermakers. Wisconsin covers by a half a point, and this one hits the over. I already did a preview and prediction on Iowa and Ohio State on the channel and on the podcast feed, so I won't spend a ton of time on it here. This line has been very interesting. When I recorded my preview a couple of days ago, it was sitting at minus 20.5 for Ohio State. Now it's sitting at minus 18.5. So this one creeping closer and closer to the Iowa Hawkeyes. Maybe Vegas is thinking that Iowa's defense can maybe hold up in this football game against Ohio State. I'm not as confident. I think the Buckeyes are going to get this one on the perimeter. They're going to hit big plays right away and try to take Iowa's run game out of this football game, getting the Hawkeyes behind where they maybe got to throw the ball a little bit more to get back into this football game. I've got 34-10. Ohio State gets the win over the Iowa Hawkeyes in this one. So Ohio State cover, and this one actually goes under the 45.5. Let's talk about Indiana and Northwestern. It is October officially. It is Halloween season. It is spooky season. I am spooked. I am flat out spooked by the spread in this game, Indiana and Northwestern, and the over-under in this game. It's a 14-point spread, and the over-under is 41.5. That being said, I've got Indiana 41, Northwestern 14. Me and Vegas, we couldn't agree less. I was about to say agree more. We couldn't agree less between this Hoosiers Wildcats game. This is going to be on the lakefront. I looked up the weather, and the weather looks like it's going to be pretty nice in Evanston. So it's not like there's going to be blustering and wind gusts out there. But even if it was, Indiana's the leading rushing offense in the Big Ten right now. So I think Indiana can score. I don't think Northwestern can score. So I've got Indiana winning big. So sue me, Vegas. Sue me. All right, let's move on to some more matchups here. Rutgers and Nebraska, the last game in the mid-afternoon. I think this is going to be a physical, old-school Big Ten type of contest. I did a preview on the YouTube. I did a preview on the podcast platform as well. So if you want more in-depth analysis, go check that out over there. But I've got Nebraska winning 21-17 over the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. You know, I think both defenses are going to be ready to play. I think this one could come down to special teams. I think that favors Rutgers over Nebraska. You've seen Nebraska's kicking game as of late. I think the Huskers can move the ball, but they're going to need to be able to score against this Rutgers red zone defense that is second in the country right now. I feel really good. Rutgers plus 6.5. I think Greg Schiano is going to have these boys ready to play for this game. I think the big key is, can Nebraska hit big scoring plays down the field? If they can't, and if they get more methodical and they get into the red zone, can Nebraska's kick game, if it comes to that, can Nebraska's kick that game win them a game? And can Nebraska win a close game? If they win this one close, I think that almost does a lot more mentally for this Husker team than if they were to blow out Rutgers. I think if you're Matt Rule, you want to be able to win that tough, grinded out 60-minute type of matchup. I think they do in this game, and I think this one goes under the 40.5. All right, prime time football. The Michigan Wolverines visiting the Washington Huskies. I think that this one is a contrast of styles. Styles make fights. One of my favorite sayings out there in the football world. And I think this is a toss-up of toss-ups. I think Washington can move the football, but kind of like that Rutgers-Nebraska game, I think it's going to come down to finishing drives for Washington. You look at their losses this season against Washington State and against Rutgers, they couldn't finish. They probably should have won both of those football games, but they couldn't finish drives. Can they finish drives against Michigan? That is going to be the big question for the Huskies in this particular matchup. Michigan, we know that this is a really good defense. I think the Wolverines are going to win the battle up front on their defensive line versus Washington's offensive line. I think that they can disrupt Will Rogers in this pass game with that really good pass rush. Will Johnson is coming back. Michigan is 103rd in the country in pass defense, so that will help them, especially going up against a Washington team where Will Rogers is one of the Big Ten's best passers right now, and they've got Denzel Boston and Giles Jackson, number 2 and number 3 in the Big Ten in receiving right now, so Michigan's pass defense is going to be tested, but I think their offense can do just enough against maybe an underrated Washington defense, and I think that defensive line is going to eat up front. I've got Michigan, winning in an upset because Washington is a 1.5-point favorite, even though Michigan is number 10 in the country and Washington is unranked. Just throw the word upset maybe out of the window with this game because it really doesn't make sense either way, whether it's Vegas or whether it's based on the ranking right now. Last one, I'm going to talk about the USC Trojans travel into the greatest airport on God's green earth, taking on the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Now, my gut and this spread tells me that this is going to be a competitive game. When we talk about those upsets at the beginning of this video, at the beginning of this pod, at the beginning of this segment, this is one I think people are circling right now. I think Minnesota is going to come out very motivated. I think Minnesota is going to come out pissed off and angry the way that one went down against Michigan. They were playing really well down the stretch, and they had an opportunity to pull the upset there. Now they're in their own backyard. Now they're in Huntington Bank Stadium. I'm curious to see if Darius Taylor gets more involved in the run game. This is a Minnesota offense with Greg Harbaugh and now with Max Brosmer at quarterback that's been leaning a little bit more into the throw game. Maybe the offensive line has underperformed a little bit for Minnesota. Do they feel that they can go nose to nose and get a good push against this USC defensive line? If they can, and they try to keep USC's offense off the field, maybe that's a formula for Minnesota to come out with an upset in this particular game as well. I think Minnesota covers plus 8.5. I think it's close. It could be back and forth, but I've got USC. The Trojans just have too much talent. I think they make a couple of big plays down the stretch. I think for Minnesota, it's going to be tough to cover Deuce Robinson. It's going to be tough to cover Jacoby Lane. Okay, if this one ends up being a blowout in favor of the Trojans, it's because the Trojans hit big play after big play after big play over the top, maybe against an outmanned and overmatched Minnesota secondary. I've got USC 31 and Minnesota 24. So this one goes over the 49.5 in this particular football game. Those are my picks. I want to hear your picks. Do you agree? Well, of course you don't, right? I'm sure you don't agree with every single thing, spreads, over-unders that I said there. Leave all your picks week 6 in the comments below. Folks, enjoy your Friday night. Enjoy your college football Saturday, because when I come back and I talk to you next, we are getting ready for the week of all weeks in the Big Ten Conference. I'm Big Ten Ted. We will see you in the next one.
Thank you for watching and listening to Big Nation. Make sure to subscribe and follow Big Ten Ted on X, YouTube, and podcast platforms to stay in the know on all things Big Ten football.